Well, ladies and gentlemen, buckle up. We've got another major report coming out of the Biden White House. And you can see Biden's polling denial, why he doesn't believe he is behind. This coming out a few days ago. It's gotten so bad for the Democrats, they've had to wheel Biden out, and he's kind of given this fake, oh, I want to debate Trump now, I'm ready to go. When, of course, in reality, we knew from the beginning, and no one else has said this, but guys, think about this for a second. There is a 0% chance Joe Biden would be debating Donald Trump if his poll numbers were where they were in 2020 at this time. Because remember, if you go back to May of 2020, Trump's approval rating wasn't as bad as Biden's is right now, but Biden was up in basically every swing state by more than Trump is right now. So if Biden was still up in all the swing states, Biden and the Democrats would be pulling the whole charade. Trump is a criminal. Look at all the charges he's in court. I'm not debating him. And it was so hilarious to see them be forced to wheel out Biden and him give this fake half-assed, I'm ready to debate him. And you know that they wanted no part of any type of debate. And the only reason they're forced to debate is because they're losing literally every swing state. When you look at the aggregate numbers, this is something we did not see in 2016. We did not see it in 2020. It is a total reversal, but Biden apparently just doesn't believe it. Let's see what this says. Biden doesn't believe his bad polls numbers, and neither do many of his closest advisors, according to people familiar with the situation. And it later says that they're serious. They do not believe it. It's not public spin. According to Democrats who have spoken privately with the president and his team, the bedrock belief has informed Biden's largely steady as she goes campaign, even as many Democrats outside the White House are worried, and some of them are calling for a change of direction. And even those Democrats that are outside, kind of like the younger ones who actually understand that these polling numbers are bad, they don't even understand, because I've heard several of them say and make the argument that, oh, we just need someone else. Trump is facing 80, 90 charges. The fact that Biden is trailing him just goes to show you how bad Biden is. No, dumbass. Trump is actually helped by the charges because many independent people see it as a ridiculous political witch hunt. And I don't know if you guys have seen what's been going on. Vivek Ramaswamy going to watch the proceeding and just absolutely going ballistic outside of the courtroom. I think Vivek should possibly be VP, although who really knows? I did like Tulsi Gabbard, but it's looking like right now I've been hearing Ben Carson. But either way, it's just such a sham. And the other thing is, they think Trump is this worse than Adolf Hitler type figure. And if you look at the actual charges against Trump, they're trying to get him on a technicality. So it's like, oh yeah, he's real horrible. Let's get him for murder. Let's get him for assault. No, we can get him on maybe a technicality with a ridiculously liberal judge who campaigned under the idea of getting Trump. Oh, it's certainly not corrupt in New York. A few days earlier, confronted with some of his bad poll numbers in a rare interview with CNN, Biden offered a more sweeping indictment of polling methodology. Quote, the polling data has been wrong all along. And you know what? Technically, Biden is right. It's actually underestimated Trump in both 2016 and 2020. So he is correct. The polling data has been wrong. It's favored Biden too much. And so I guess the cope is, well, because it favored Biden too much in 2016, or excuse me, Hillary too much in 2016 and Biden too much in 2020, they think the polls have kind of overcorrected the Trump support, and now they're polling more Trump supporters. And listen, to me, it's just a total cope, and this is bad news for the Democrats. But really, what can you do other than kind of planning a debate? What a weird debate that is, by the way. Late June for a presidential debate. And I know the whole thing with early voting, I get it, but that just seems like such a charade. A June debate for the presidency, it's very weird. Why not do it late August, even early September? There's still going to be a lot of people, the majority of people that are early voting, they probably haven't even cast their ballots by early September. So it's not like you're missing a ton of people that would potentially be voting early. I think it's a total sign of desperation. I mean, Trump accepting it, you understand that Trump at this point is going to have a ton of ammunition. Biden being the most, unapproved president in U.S. history by about 6 points. The idea that the world had more stability under Trump than it does now currently under Biden, you would think Trump would do well in that debate. I do think overall debates kind of are overrated in the grand scheme of things, especially if you're going to be having one in June. But again, it is just funny to see Biden forced to do these debates. They wanted no part of this, and they 100% for sure, if they were winning in the polls or they thought they were going to win. I know this article says, well, Biden still thinks he's going to win, but there is no way on God's green earth, if they really thought Biden was leaving, like if it was the 2020 polls, Biden is not debating. They're saying, we're not debating a criminal. Trump is in court every day. He's facing all these charges. He's got multiple charges in multiple states. Why would we do that? That's terrible. We're not going to dignify that. And of course, they can't do that because they're losing in the polls. So they're like little leeches and they're forced to debate. It really is hilarious. And now Biden comes out and says, oh, I'm ready to go. It just has to be on CNN. It just has to be with no audience. It just has to be in June. Like a 13-year-old girl. He can debate you, but it has to be on his terms. It's like, dude, you're running for re-election. You actually need to do stuff. The ghost of COVID is not coming back. You don't get to hide in your basement and blame it on COVID. You're going to actually have to go out and campaign, and it's a big issue for Biden. Now, we also did get a few different polls that came out. The polls have been more sporadic. By the way, I don't know if anyone saw what Joe Scarborough said, where he kind of had a temper tantrum about the New York Times Siena poll being pro-conservative. So he says the New York Times, because we all know New York Times, they're the number one biggest Trump supporters. They're basically doctoring the polls or purposefully polling more Trump supporters to try and drum up clicks or something like that, when in reality, all of the polls basically say the same thing. And if you actually want to argue bias, how about Real Clear Politics removing Rasmussen, the poll that had Trump up 12, from the aggregate in terms of popular vote? Now, you could say, well, Rasmussen is pro-conservative. Well, what about doing that with Quinnipiac in 2020? They never did that, and Quinnipiac skewed the results and made it seem like Biden was up by bigger margins, and obviously that made it more inaccurate because Biden, in terms of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, he was up by 5 or 6 points in terms of the polls, and he only wins the state by less than a point. Remember Quinnipiac? They had Biden up by 10 in Florida a month before the election. Trump wins it by 3 points. They're a bad pollster. And now this idiot Scarborough wants to come out and say, New York Times is pro-Trump. This is how much in denial these people are. It's hilarious. Let's take a look at the average right now. Trump plus 1.1. You look at the 5-way, Trump goes to 2.7, which you could argue is more important because of RFK. And yes, there's big news. They're basically not allowing RFK to debate. I think it's terrible. I do think the independent should be in this debate. But you could say, well, he would allow Biden to hide. Biden wouldn't have to talk as much. RFK at this point really doesn't have much of a chance to win. I do think at some point there is going to be an independent drive in this country, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be 2024. It might be 2028. But you can see the battlegrounds right now. The big states to watch here: Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada. Trump up relatively comfortably in all those, even Pennsylvania +2. Michigan and Wisconsin right now, pure toss-ups. There's no doubt about that. Another Minnesota poll coming out that has Biden barely up. That is just a head-to-head poll, but that's the third one we've seen now, I believe. That is very close in Minnesota. So you are looking at Minnesota getting into the swing state dialogue. And if we keep getting these polls that have Biden barely up, maybe a poll with Trump up, we will be able to confirm that Minnesota is in fact a swing state. Now, I'm not saying Trump's going to win Minnesota, but if you get multiple polls within the span of a month that's very close, you can start really talking about it. It's like right now, even though it's been very limited polling, the polling in Minnesota is closer than the polling in Georgia. Trump is up by a bigger margin in Georgia than Biden is in Minnesota. And again, it's very slim polling. Maybe there will be more polls that come out that have Biden up more, but it's something interesting to watch. And you get some Fox News polls, Trump up by 1 in the general. You include everyone, Trump goes to +3. That's actually a good approval rating for Biden, 45% approval, disapproval +10. But either way, his approval rating is still very, very bad. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.